Hi guys, it's me, Adam Garratt, and welcome back to the kitchen where you can watch me make you some delicious food. Now before we dive into this, I just want to go over a couple of things. First being, ta-da! I finally finished painting my freaking kitchen. Right, it's done, which I'm sure many of you are pleased about. Okay, no more to do, it's finished. I have also got the floor to finish, but you guys don't need to worry about that. And the last thing is you might notice that this video is in 4K. Yes, Adam in 4K. I finally booted myself up the backside, got myself a 4K camera. I will still use the Canon because that's primarily a really good picture camera. But this, hopefully, if I got all my settings right, should produce a much nicer video. Don't you agree, Mogs? Right. It's having a scratch. But I just wanted to go through those things before we jump into the video. Now today I'm going to do a kitchen basics video and I'm going to show you how to cook pork chops. Now I come across this problem a lot. You know, people say to me, oh, you know, I'm scared of cooking pork. You know, if I undercook it, I'm going to poison myself. But then I go too far and it's overcooked and dry and not very pleasant. And actually a lot of it is a myth, okay? And you don't need to be worried about undercooking pork. If you've got good stuff, good quality free range pork, if it's ever so slightly pink, it's fine. It's absolutely demonstrably fine. I always find it's better to undercook pork than overcook it. You know, you're going to get a much tastier, juicier pork chop at the end of it. And also because this is my dinner, we're going to serve it with some nice mashed potato, but I'm not going to go too much into that because I've already done a video on mashed potato before, so I'll put that up on the screen somewhere. So without further ado, let's crack on with it. I'm going to go over there and grab my pork. Right, so I've got my pork chops here. Now I got these from my local butcher and they're really good quality. They're free range and you can tell that because they've got a nice layer of fat, nice and thick, and also they're a slightly darker pink colour than you would get from commercial pork. So go down to your butcher, get some bone-in free range pork chops and I tell you, you won't be disappointed. Now before we season these up and get them cooked, I'm going to show you a nice neat little trick to stop them curling up in the pan as they cook. So one of the problems that people have with pork chops is they get their chop, they season it up, and then they whack it in the pan, and as soon as it hits that hot heat, it kind of buckles up at the sides like that, and you end up not getting a nice even colouring on the outside of the pork chop. So I'm going to show you a way to stop that happening. Now all you need to do is just take the chop, I'll show you with this nice big fat juicy one here, and what you need to do is take a nice sharp knife and just cut into the fat just before it gets to the meat. Okay, just stop before it gets to the meat and then just go along again about an inch in between and just basically do that along the whole of the pork chop until you end up with something like that. Okay, and that just helps stop it from buckling in the pan. So I'm going to crack on with this next one, we'll season them up and we can get them cooked. Right, so I've got my chops here and I'm just going to lightly season them on both sides with salt and pepper to start with. Do the other side. Next, we're going to add some salt. Don't want to add too much, you know, because of the health conscious salt police will be on my case. Okay, so that's the pork chops nicely seasoned. We can now get them in the pan. Right, so I've got my pan on a low to medium heat. It's not too hot. I'm going to add just a touch of oil. It can be any oil you like. Just get that in there. Then we're going to get our pork chops in. And what you're looking for is a nice gentle sizzle. You don't want it too aggressive because what's going to happen is you're going to char the outside and it's not going to be cooked in the middle. So we want it nice and gentle. Now because we've got this on quite a low heat, it's going to take longer each side to cook. So you're looking between about 8 to 10 minutes each side to develop that nice crust and to get them cooked all the way through. But remember, if they're slightly pink inside, it really doesn't matter. In fact, it's probably going to be more juicy. Okay, so these chops are about 80% done, so just to kind of finish them off, what I'm going to do is add a nice generous slither of butter, because that's just going to give it a nice nutty flavour and it's also going to help brown the chops as well. Next I'm going to add a couple of garlic cloves, and all I've done is just slice them in half, and I've got a sprig of rosemary here I'm just going to squish it up in my hands a bit just to release those oils. We'll get that in as well. And as the butter melts, you just want to kind of baste it over the top of the chops just to impart that lovely flavoured butter and oil. And again, keeping it on a nice low heat so we don't burn that butter, because we're actually going to use this to make a sauce at the end. Right, okay, so these chops are done. I'm just going to turn off the heat and I'm going to transfer them over to this chopping board. Now the important thing with these chops now is to let them rest. Okay, don't cut into them, don't slice them open, don't do anything with them. They need to rest for a good 10 minutes to allow the juices to go back into the chop, which keeps them nice and moist. Now what you can do is this fat that's on the edge, you know, if you want to crisp it up, you can turn them on their sides for a few minutes. Generally, it doesn't get that crispy, so I tend to take it off, but you know, it's your choice. So what I'm going to do now is let these rest for 10 minutes, finish off the mash, get my veg done, and then we can make the sauce for the pork chops. Right, so everything's pretty much ready, mash is done, veg is almost there, pork chops are nicely rested. So now I'm going to make a really quick pan sauce. So what I'm going to do is all that gubbins and fat and all the bits from the pork that are left in that pan, I'm just going to get this onto a fairly high heat, and as it starts to sizzle, I'm going to add in some cider. And what will happen is that cider will emulsify with the butter and the fat and lift off all those porky bits and juices and everything else, and it's going to make a fantastic sauce. You don't have to use cider, in fact you can just use plain water and it's still going to be really tasty. You don't need to add any salt, no pepper, because remember we've seasoned the pork chops as we were cooking them. So I'm going to give this a couple of minutes for that cider to reduce down and then we can eat. Right, so now everything's done, we can assemble it. I'm just going to start with a nice portion of mashed potato. Now I like my mash, so I'm going to put quite a bit on. Next I've got my veg. I've got some cavolo nero here and just some nice garden peas. Then I've got a gorgeous bone-in pork chop, which I'm just going to nestle on the top like that. And then lastly, our wonderful pan sauce with that cider. Now you're not going to need a lot of this because it's going to be quite strong. Some on that mash as well so it can moat itself round. And there we have it folks, that's how you cook a very simple pork chop. So I'm going to take a thumbnail of this and then we can get stuck in. Right, here it is. Excuse me whilst I sort out the stupid wire from this microphone. I really need to invest. Now I've got a good camera, I need to get a good mic. That's another story. Okay, let's dig in. Well, I'm going to go straight in for the pork chop, obviously. Probably a little bit cold by now because I've been messing about with thumbnails and all that. Some of that sauce. Let's dig in. Still nice and juicy. Bit of that fat as well, because although I don't like the wobbly kind of outer skin, the inside fat is really nice. Well, I didn't get to finish what I was going to say, did I? Because I've now discovered that a 32GB SD card is not enough for 4K footage. Sake, it's never easy, is it? So just cut me off. No more space. But alas, the pork chop was delicious. Very tasty and easy to do. So don't be worried about cooking a pork chop, it's really very simple. But as with anything, you give it practice, you're just going to get better and better. Right, so that's me done here. I hope you enjoyed the video. A nice little simple kitchen basics tutorial. And of course, if you like what you see, then please stick a like down below, comment and share it across your social media platforms. And as always, stick around because at the end there'll be some links to some other videos and my face will be on there so you can subscribe. And I'll see you lovely lot next time for more tasty fun and frolics, and bye for now.